Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Was There Last Night, because I was there last night. And last night, September 1st, 2015, I saw at the Bluebird Theater in Denver, Colorado, Insomnium, Omnium, Gatherum, and a local band called Solarfall. Very excited about this show. I was extremely happy to see Insomnium coming through Denver again, because the last time they came through, I wasn't able to get tickets in time. And, to see them this time was just a dream come true. And then you add in a band like Omnium Gatherum, who I haven't listened to for very long, but once I started listening to them, and they have kind of a similar sound as Insomnium, so it, kind of made it an easy transition. So it was a very, very exciting show. But before I get into the main bands, which I could just go on for hours, I'm sure, but I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I want to talk about the local band. I want to give a little shout out to the local band that played beforehand. They're called Solarfall. They're from around Denver, Arvada, from Erie. So they're, fairly young band. I mean, you can tell. You look at these guys, and they all look like they're teenagers. In fact, all of them had the X's on their hands, so you knew that they were under 21. Um, but that's, I mean, neither here nor there, because I'm not going to use youth as a, criticism of the band, because actually they did a very good job. Very, like, folky melodic death metal, almost kind of like Winter Sun. They remind me a lot of Winter Sun, actually. Just the sound that they were producing. It very much sounded kind of like either old Ensiferum or Winter Sun, whatever has Yari in it. Um, but no, they did a great job, and I actually would like to see them succeed. It's, I don't listen to a lot of local music. It's something that I've wanted to do and to get into more. But to see this, young group, they might even be teenagers for all I know. They were very young looking. It was almost like an adorable little death metal band. But they did a very good job. All pieces of their band were pretty good. I couldn't really hear the vocalist very well. I don't know if, I was very front row, so I heard the bass right in my ear. The bass was very, um, very loud. The bass guitar, that is. So I didn't really hear the guitar solos. I didn't really hear the vocals very well. But from the rhythm and everything else that they had, they did a very good job. So, band called Solarfall, they're on Facebook. Check them out. I'm going to give them a little support, because I thought they did a great job last night. And it was a great opportunity for them to play in front of two melodic death metal masters. So, on to the masters. The first band, Omnium Gatherum, they came on. Now it's interesting, because the guitarist from Omnium Gatherum actually is the current guitarist of Insomnium as well. So he did double duty last night. So he had a busy night, but he's a fantastic guitarist. His name is Marcus something. I don't really know anybody's name in those bands. They're so hard to pronounce. But they're from Finland. Leave me alone. But so he did double duty last night. Did a great job. And an Omnium Gatherum, which is a little bit. I'm not going to say they're slower than Insomnium, or they're not as aggressive necessarily. They're kind of more. They have a like a cadence of their own. And it really, I mean, it played really well. It was just a, from the get go, they were on top of things. They're a 6-piece band, so they've got 2 guitarists, bass player, singer, keyboardist, and drummer. And from just the start, everybody was doing a fantastic job. And what was interesting, and I didn't really think about it at first, because usually when you go to a concert nowadays, especially a metal concert, they're throwing out guitar picks and stuff like that to everybody. I didn't see any guitar picks. I was like, what the hell? None of their guitarists use picks. They all use just the finger. They're all, fingered, which I thought was pretty cool. Just to see something kind of different than, what I typically see. And they were still extremely fast and, right on point. They did a great job. The lead singer of Omnium Gatherum, he was a character. It was just fun. he definitely was schmoozing with the crowd a lot. A lot of the put your horns up, and it's fun. He did something that I've never seen before, and I thought it was kind of funny. He basically like if like I said, I'm in the front row, so I'm putting my horns up, and he comes up and he like touches my horns with his horns. It was the weirdest thing, but it was very cool. Um, like I said, I haven't been listening to Omnium Gatherum for very long, so I didn't know all the songs that they were playing. But there were a couple that they did play that I, knew, and actually one of them is one of their songs that has quickly become one of my favorite songs of theirs. So I thought it was just like, yeah, there's a reason why I like it because it's a great song, and I'm glad that they played it. So it's called The Unknowing. The other one that I do know really well by them is called Everfields, and they actually opened with that song. So, and it's a long, like 8.5 minute, 9 minute song. So this very, just like epic kind of, melodic death metal tune that they did well. Um, Overall, I was very impressed by them. They had great energy, and the crowd responded to them with great energy too. There were no pits during Omnium Gatherum, but everybody was just having a great time, enjoying it. Um, it definitely reminded me why I miss going to death metal shows, because death metal has its own kind of flavor to it, and especially melodic death metal, which is probably my favorite subgenre of metal, just because, especially like Insomnium and Arch Enemy and Amorphous, kind of older Amorphous, just those bands that have more melody to their music instead of just like really aggressive and loud and all that stuff. They actually, there's that melody to it too. Especially these bands from Finland, Omnium Gatherum and Insomnium, both from Finland, and both just knock it out of the park in terms of their music. So, Omnium Gatherum, fantastic show. I was absolutely stoked by them. Just an absolute great time to hear those guys play. And then on to the main event. That was the one that I wanted to see. That's the one that I have been dying to see for so long. Because a couple of years ago, I'd been listening to Insomnium for a while, probably since like their second or third album, but I wasn't like a huge fan. I wasn't like a huge Insomnium fan, and then I got the next two albums that they had released. So I was, like I said, I wasn't a huge fan, so I didn't like listen to it as much. When I got those two albums, I became obsessed, and for like the last like 3 or 4 years, they've been one of those bands that has just become one of my absolute favorite bands. They are so fantastic. Their music is so beautiful, and it's that you know beautiful aggression that I know that I feel a lot of the time. So to hear them live was an absolute treat. Now the it was announced before the tour, before their North American tour, that they would be minus their normal drummer and their normal singer, or their normal growl singer, so also bass player, for different reasons. And that kind of it disappointed me a little bit when I heard it, because it's like I'm not going to be seeing the pure Insomnium, but at the same time, I wasn't going to say no, I'm not going to do it because they're not there, because I know that they wouldn't go forward with it if they weren't comfortable with whoever they chose to fill in the spot, take over, and do what they do justice to the band. And I don't know what the name of the guy who replaced them was, but I gotta say he did a great job. His growls were not as, I wouldn't say as clean as um, Milo is the normal singer's name, the guy who does the growls and grunts for the band, because they also have a clean singer, but he was there. So it wasn't nearly as clean, but he still was on point. He did a great job. He had the right energy, the right attitude, and yeah, I'm not going to complain whatsoever. I think he definitely did justice to the band. Um, Another thing really interesting about Insomnium was just the fact that the you know going into this, obviously I listened to them religiously, and one of they're like a handful of songs that I listen to all the time. It's just like they hit the spot every single time. And what's funny is they didn't play any of them. Well, they maybe played one, Weighed Down with Sorrow, which they actually closed with, which was Awesome. But for the most part, like the songs that I listen to religiously, they didn't play, which, a part of me is disappointed because it's like I really wanted to hear them play something like Lay the Ghost to Rest or Shadows of the Dying Sun or, The Day It All Came Down. Those are the kinds of songs that, like just give me that insomnium fervor, that like, that just wonderful feeling. So the fact that they didn't play any of those songs was a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, the songs they did, excuse me, the songs they did play were superb. They knocked them out of the park. Weighed Down with Sorrow, the way they closed the show, it was just a perfect fitting, just like a great song to bring everybody together and just like, you know, hammer it out. Because I'd say toward the, like the last 5 or 6 songs, that's when the pit really started to liven up and get really involved. It wasn't a super aggressive pit, but there was, it was a decent pit, which is also something I really haven't experienced since I stopped going to concerts for so long. I didn't partake in the pit, just not my thing anymore. But when you're up at the very front, you can't really avoid it too much either. Um, but some of the songs that they played, which I'm kind of surprised by the choices that they made. They nailed it. Like Drawn to Black from Above the Weeping World. That song was one that the pit was moving crazy. I mean, that was a crazy pit for that one. But that was one I would not have expected, like in my wildest dreams, and it turned out fantastic. Like I'm so glad that they played it. But the ones that I was kind of hoping they would play that they did. Black Heart Rebellion from Shadows of the Dying Sun. They played that, and whew, boy, that was a good time. They did play Promethean Song also from Shadows of the Dying Sun, which I thought was just that one. Before the song, he mentioned Milo and the personal family issues that he's having and the reason why he couldn't come on tour, and just to kind of that to dedicate that song to him, and I thought that was really nice. And then just the song itself, the crowd, the energy, everything about it was just perfect. It was so awesome. Um, they opened with the Primeval Dark, which the opening of Shadows of the Dying Sun, and followed it up with While We Sleep. That was a great opening. It set the tone for the night, and I thought it did a great job of doing that. But if I had to pick one song that really just like hit and just like got into me and just like was like yes, is they played The Elder off of In the Halls of Awaiting. So like off of their first album, they played my favorite song off of that album, and whew boy, it just like it hit the spot. Their goal was to play at least one song off of every album, and they did, to make it a very diverse, unique playlist. But most of the songs did come from Shadows of the Dying Sun, which is understandable. It's their newest album. They're touring in support of that album, so it makes sense that the bulk of the songs are gonna come from there. But they at least still did songs. They did Down the Sun. They did Out to the Sea, which was an interesting choice. Ephemeral. Bereavement, that was a good one too. So just like a great selection of songs. Surprising. I mean, it was a really surprising selection, but just a fantastic selection of songs. So I've gone way over what I wanted to say, but like I said, I could talk about this all night because it was a fantastic concert. Insomnium, if you're not a death metal fan, understandable. For me, though, going to a death metal concert for the first time since 2011 was cathartic. It really was. It just brought out all those emotions of joy and just release that I can't get at some of these other concerts. They're great concerts. Don't get me wrong. I love going to see Nightwish and Volbeat and stuff like that. But none of those gave me the kind of like spiritual release that Insomnium did last night. And even though it wasn't the true Insomnium playing, they played with the same heart that I would expect them to, and they just absolutely knocked it out of the park. So I was there last night. I saw Insomnium and Omnium Gatherum, at the Bluebird Theater in Denver with a special guest from the local band Solarfall. And you can't prove it because if you weren't there, you wouldn't know. So, see you next time. Stay metal.